Well, welcome everyone for at this last call of the year. So before Adam will take over, I would like to hand over to Frank for a short welcome note and for a few comments, and then Adam, it's over to you after Frank. So
thanks.
Frank.
Okay, Peter, thank you, and good morning, everybody. I think this is probably our 6th or 7th call this year, but probably going to be our last one, and I appreciate all of you joining. I had a couple of things I wanted to kind of cover. Adam, I had one slide I think that we were going to go to. Yeah, there you go. So as many of you know, we had our forum a couple of weeks ago, and we called it Investing in Tomorrow Today. That was our theme. And what we talked about was the investments that many of the distributors around, certainly in Europe, America, are making, to keep up with the changes that we see, in the industry, and they're certainly significant changes. We had really good attendance at the event. One couple of highlights. We had I thought a very good presentation from IDC Europe, and they talked about their view of sort of the evolving role of distributors as we go forward in the marketplace, and I thought that was a really useful session, and we've gotten a lot of good input on that. And then we had a panel with our executive committee members, and the panel consisted of Alessandro Catani from Esprinet, Rich Hume from TD Synnex, and Paul Bay, VP from Ingram. And it was very, very informative as to what these senior executives are thinking about, and what they're kind of what's driving them and the companies and the investments that they're making. So I thought that was really good. As I mentioned during that forum, we had fully intended to do that live and in person, and for obvious reasons we couldn't. However, we are planning, to do it in person in 2022, and try to get back to our the way we've run the summits in the past. So more to come on that. Hoping in the June timeframe to have a live event, and to hope to see many of you at that event. A couple of other things. We are about to release a research report on the activity that we're seeing in the marketplace with the hyperscalers, and how that relates to distribution. How that I think is actually in a lot of cases going to be very positive, because it's pretty clear to me that those folks are relying on the channel to go to market, just like every other vendor that started out going direct. And as we all know, when folks rely on the solution providers in the marketplace, there's a role for distribution. And so that I think is going to be important. And we'll be talking a lot more about that. And then finally, we have a new member. I'd like to welcome Nuvius to the GTDC. They recently joined, and Wayne Grattan from Nuvius is on the call. So Wayne, welcome to you and your team. We're really looking forward to working with you. So, thank you, all right, Frank. With that, Peter, I will turn it back over to you, and let you kind of go through the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Adam, over to you. I think we're all waiting for your choice.
Great. Thank you very much. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, Frank, for inviting us to give the latest update. And we're going to do some polling. So if you would like to get onto slido.com on your smartphones and enter the code 919755. We've got a few questions which come from the GTDC, and I've got a couple of questions that come from us as well. And so we'll do a little bit of live polling during this session. But first of all, I'm going to start just by giving you the update of the distribution industry. I'm going to use the same format as I've used in the past. Start off with our overview of where we are at the moment. And so I've updated this. This is the latest in our updates. The last one was in the forum. And we use this kind of mountain image for what Q4 is. We had a Mont Blanc in 2019, we had an Everest in 2020, and we weren't quite sure if it was going to be what it was going to be in 2021. The one thing we're pretty sure of is it's going to be quite a bit lower than Everest, and it should still be above Mont Blanc. But the start to the quarter was good. October was very good. It was pretty much, it was 2% growth year on year in October. But November has seen a really dramatic falling back against prior year, more than we had expected. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And it's looking like it's running at around about -8% on 2020. So we knew it was going to be hard to keep up with 2020, but we weren't expecting it to be quite as dramatic as that. And we've still got the month of December to go. And what you see is that if you look at the top countries, you can see that, let me just get this to, that's it. You can see that Germany is the one which is really pulling back the channel, because I've got here the baseline indices here, comparing a year ago to this year. And you can see that Germany is 107 versus 120 last year. And so it really is the one that is bringing us down. Germany is the largest country for distribution in our panel by quite a long way. And so when Germany is down as much as this, it really impacts the whole of Europe. The other countries are closer to last year's performance. And there's a couple of high points, which is Poland doing extremely well. Look at that, 173, even above last year. And Sweden has been doing very well, particularly in software, which has been really, really strong in Sweden. So I'm going to ask the first question. And the first question, which comes this from the GTDC, what best describes your expectations for business conditions in the year ahead? So do you think it's going to be much better, favorable for all channels? Is it more likely to be channel and country specific, or do you think it's actually just not going to be as good as the current year? So just give you a bit of time to answer. It's great to get feedback. So we've got 12, 13 responses so far. And just give you a couple more minutes. Yeah, okay, so it looks like it's the second option. You have to be very careful when you're reading these Slido graphs, because it puts your original second option is now the first. So it is in fact somewhat better overall, depending on destination, channel, country, region. And I do believe that we have some people who might be prepared to comment on that and say what they think. So maybe if I could ask Patrick to say what you think on that first question.
Yeah, so I also picked up what is now the first answer. I mean, my view is, so at the moment, it's clear that shortages have an impact on the demand, a significant impact on the demand, or I should say on our billings. And on the positive, of course, is I guess most of us or all of us are seeing our backlogs continuing to increase. So the two go together. So, I mean, next year we will have at least 1 or 2 quarters where, according to me, we should, I mean, see the benefit of suddenly I would say the deliveries from vendors easing out, and of course we will be able to build. So that's on the positive, and I think we should see it across multiple technologies, in particular for printing and for the infrastructure business. Now you have some headwinds in front of us. One of them being that, in particular in the mobile space, some of the large vendors are taking customers direct. So that will have a negative impact on the demand. And then, of course, you have also a very strong compare, in particular in PCs or peripherals. I don't think that next year we'll be able to hold it up. So that's going to be difficult. So that's where I am at the moment. So I see, if you look at the, let's call it the endpoint solution, PC, mobile, and so on, I think it's going to be a more difficult year. On the enterprise/infrastructure business, I'm expecting a better year than this year. We were expecting a much better recovery, which didn't came as expected. So hopefully next year with deliveries resuming, hopefully we are going to see that positive. And yeah, that's very high level how I see it. From a geographical standpoint, I think those two phenomena will impact probably all Europe. Some countries are really behind in terms of recovery. Some recovered better than others. So France, for example, or UK. So hopefully, I mean, those countries will benefit a little bit more. But so that's my prediction at the moment. But it will be a mixed bag. That's my prediction for next year.
And Patrick, when you say printing, is that really entirely supply chain driven because there've been so many shortages this year?
Exactly. I mean, that's what the vendors all tell us. I mean, constantly they say, okay, we are not able to ship, so, and we see it in our billings. So I'm talking the hardware. Supply is a different story, but on the hardware in particular. So I'm expecting here again a small rebound because of that.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you very much. I think that Wayne was ready to intervene on this. Wayne, what's your view?
So I would echo Patrick's points. I think they're excellent, so I won't repeat them. The thing I would add, I think the wider economy is something that brings a lot of uncertainty, and you know, the economy's certainly in 2021 and 2020 been a lot better than we perhaps could have hoped in March of 2020. I think there are a lot of uncertain headwinds. So I think there's lots of opportunity we see individually, as I'm sure other panel members do. And with the pressures that Patrick points out, I would just add on that we really don't know what's going to happen with the wider economies, with extra COVID threats coming in, with inflation rising. I think it's, I'd love to be able to predict 2022, but sadly I can't.
Okay, and Al, would you like to give a reseller perspective? You may be muted, Al. Al Wynn. He was definitely there at the beginning. I don't know, he might have dropped off. He said he was very busy. I think it looks like he might have dropped off.
No, he is still
there.
there.
He's there.
We don't
He's
hear
there.
him. Oh, we can't hear you, so.
We can't hear you, Al. Even though you're not muted. Okay, well, let's move on. We'll ask, maybe he'll get his speaker sorted out. So maybe, how about Svens? Would you like to give a view from your part of the world?
I was the one voting for the majority opinion as well. But I'm sort of more inclined, there was no options saying that things can remain static. So I'm more inclined, it's sort of, it won't be unfavorable, but I think it will remain pretty much status quo. I'm coming from view that with the pandemic situation, I think we don't see much factors you can change how we basically live, work, and face all the challenges in terms of logistics, disruptions in factory work, and so on. So I believe we still, to a great extent, will face shortage. we will still face quite high demand compared to pre-pandemic levels. So I believe it will be at least for 1 year the same life. It's I was predicting it differently, but
Okay.
this
And
is
what about
scenario
the-
which is in my mind. So of course we had crypto this year. We for Elko profited a lot from crypto on components. Maybe
Oh, yeah.
we will have other surprises, but still, I think generally the market overall will be pretty active.
And do you agree that the infrastructure area will be a big area of growth in 2022?
Yeah, we are waiting as well, and it's somehow. I think it should. That could be the booster. Yeah, that would be the lucky element for the next year. Yeah,
okay,
but
good.
overall, I think its conditions will remain pretty similar.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Adam, I'm going to try again. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you now, Mike. Yeah, we can hear you now, Al. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
For anyone else that feels this pain, when you jump between Zoom and Teams, your headset does not seem to like it. Yeah, interoperability of headsets, not so good. Yeah, those that know Softcat know that we're generally eternal optimists. I'd say we're cautiously optimistic at the moment going into 2022. Cautiously optimistic because business performance is good. Yes, we've got shortages, we've got supply issues, but we're navigating those okay. They're not materially impacting us too much. We're in buoyant mood as we're in the office. The return to office still creates a lot of opportunity. Every single aspect of our portfolio, there is opportunity there. Mobility, cybersecurity, cloud, infrastructure is bouncing back. There is an angle to play with every single one of those. Sustainability not on your list, but we're seeing more and more customers asking about that as well. So yeah, we're very, very optimistic. There's a lot of things, that we're needing to navigate, supply issues, and alike. But yeah, very, very, optimistic about, an interesting year next year. We are mindful of the economic position and the pain that may be felt, with the bounce back from pandemic. But yeah, on the whole, we're in positive spirits.
Okay, good. Thank you all for contributing on that. And I've got one other who I'm going to ask on the next one, which is now, before I put the next question up, there are 10 areas. We're asking you which ones you think are going to be the most important for growth in 2022. Now, when you vote for the first one that you click on, you will give mathematically more votes to, because it basically favors the first, then the second, and the third. So do think about the order in which you vote for your 3. But if you look now, you'll see here are the 10. You can't see all on the screen, but when you look on your smartphone, you'll see 10 different areas. And so yeah, you can vote in your order of preference, 1, 2, 3, which you think is going to be the top growth drivers for your business. Yeah. So there's a few there, cloud. And the ones that you can't see, yeah, people have voted.
Once you've made your selection, you'll probably have to scroll down to the bottom to hit send.
Yeah, thanks. That's important as well. Yeah, so cybersecurity is out in front at the moment. We've had 10 responses so far. And the ones that you can't see on the screen are 3D printing, 5G, and robotics. You can't see those 3, which means not many people are voting for them. Okay. So it looks like it's stabilizing at around, we've had 13, so we have a few more responses. Okay, so I'm now going to ask Michael Paparakles from Logicom. What's your feeling about this? You might be muted, Michael. I did see you there a minute ago. Yeah, you are there. Can you hear me, Michael? You need to unmute.
Michael's clearly a fellow Teams user, Adam. Anyone who's got an interoperable headset is going to, make hay next year.
Right. Well, let's ask someone else who's been prepared. How about you, Al? What do you see as your top priorities for growth in?
I was surprised mobility is not in the top 3 there. We're still seeing big demand in that space. For me, I'd definitely put mobility above hyper-converged infrastructure. And mobility would probably be number 1 for us, probably cybersecurity number 2, cloud number 3 in my mind. So yeah, everything in and around the user and user experience and correcting that as individuals and organizations get their hybrid working policy up to speed.
Yeah. How about you, Wayne?
Well, so my top there was cybersecurity, followed by cloud and PaaS, and then IoT. So there's a bit of bias from what we do. So we focus on cybersecurity, intelligent networks, and unified comms. So there's definitely a bias there. But let me call out maybe Internet of Things. I think I'm going to include operational technology in that. And that's a really exciting area for us. We've seen a lot of traction, a lot of growth, and a lot of reality in operational technology now being a security risk. So I think that's going to be a really interesting move, even more next year for us.
Okay, great. I'm glad you called it out because it's down there at number 6. So it's good to hear that. And it's a lot of talk about that area for many years. So it'd be interesting to see if 2022 is a breakthrough for it. Sven, do you want to comment on this? You're muted still.
Yes. We are maybe not that long list, so we are pretty brick and mortar hard stuff distributor, but we have seen quite uptick in robotics, so in some basic consumer products, and quite significant. So it's getting. I mean, robot vacuum cleaner. It's still a robot. But we ourselves are still surprised about demand, and we talk about lawnmowers and this and that, and we talk about significant amounts. Cybersecurity, I mean, this is in one or another way we are everybody profiting from that.
Okay. Does anyone else want to add anything before I move on? It doesn't have any other person. Very welcome. Normally,
so just very rapidly, so yeah, for sure, cloud in particular, IaaS will continue to drive a lot of demand. I mean, you are talking 30, 40, 50, 60% growth, and I think that's going to continue. The adoption rate is increasing, consumption from customers or activation and consumption from customers is increasing. The other thing which would be interesting to watch, and I agree with point number 2, is I mean, more and more security solutions are being provided by the cloud, the hyper-converged cloud providers. So it's very interesting. So in cybersecurity, I'm sure that the pure players are probably driving the votes for point 2. But I mean, we should not underestimate what's happening at the cloud providers to become also security giants, and that's very interesting. I had just a question on 5G. Are you referring here to the mobile phones or 5G in general?
In general.
Okay, and mobility is, in your mind?
Notebooks, laptops.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so 5G, that's interesting. So I voted for 5G. Because I think that the conversion to 5G is going to accelerate. So the demand probably will accelerate. And I know that, I mean, some of the mobile phone, I just mentioned it, but some of the mobile phone vendors are going direct. But nevertheless, the demand for 5G is going to dramatically increase because, I mean, the carriers are clearly strengthening their networks, installing more and more antennas to make it happen. And so there's a greater incentive for end users to convert to a 5G phone. So I'm surprised that Okay.
Okay.
Not many voted for it, but I can see.
It's great to hear those ones being called out which don't get all the votes. It's great to hear that. It gives us much kind of better picture, I think, of what's likely to happen. So that's great. Okay, so thanks very much. I'm going to move on now, and there are a couple more questions in a minute, but I'm just going to move on now. So there was an interesting article this week, and I couldn't resist just reminding you about how well distribution is doing in one way. So there was an interesting article this week that said the distribution disruption continues, lots of headwinds in the space, talking about the TD SYNNEX merger, saying that distribution needs to come out of hiding and everything like that. So it was a little provocative article. So I just wanted to update you on how distribution is doing in the stock market. So I showed you this slide last time, which was the increase in value of a basket of companies in technology compared to September 2019, in which distribution was the highest growing in terms of stock valuation based on a basket of publicly quoted companies. Whilst interesting, I've added this, the stock exchanges in 5 countries went up by 33%. You can see how much technology has driven the growth of stock exchanges. So this is the update for now. You can see that distribution is still by far the highest growing. So there's been a bit of a correction that took place after the Omicron variant of the virus. There was a bit of a plunge of the stock market. It looks like most of that has been recovered. In distribution, there's 1 or 2 small changes up and down. Logicom actually went up from last time. Facebook has lost about 20% of its valuation. So the GAFAM is actually based on an increase in Amazon and an increase in Apple, but a decrease in Facebook. Headsets and webcams have suffered. So obviously they were darlings of the stock market during the crisis. And so those ones, which is basically Jabra and Logitech, have gone down a bit. Personal systems have done really well. AMD has had a huge growth. Acer, Dell, Asus, HP, they're all at record stock prices at the moment. So they've done really well since September. Infrastructure, 1 or 2 corrections there. Imaging has suffered quite a bit, and tech retail has held up well. So in any case, I just thought that that'd be interesting if you just get a view from the stock market of where we are at the moment, which is a positive sign for the distribution industry. When we were doing our forecast, we were very clearly told by everybody that product shortage was the key to understanding what was going to happen in Q4 and Q1. And I think that the results of particularly the month of November definitely underline that. So I've just recently had our normal weekly update. And the question that I asked to people was, have you experienced more intense problems with product shortage in Q4 since the 1st of October than earlier in the year? So there was a resounding vote for saying, yes, the product shortage had definitely bitten a lot more. And people are seeing the product shortage as ending in Q3. That was the majority of people, which shows that we've still got quite a bit of time to play out this in 2022. If anyone disagrees, please just say so on the chat, or just interrupt me if you disagree. The other question that obviously you're kind of fascinated to know is, have you experienced a sharp decrease in demand in Q4? Because that's the other side of the equation. Is this in fact demand driven? And the answer to that was definitely no. People have not experienced a sharp, and of course that's what Patrick was talking about with the order backlogs, which are at record levels at the moment. We've been hearing from vendors and distributors that they've never had order backlogs quite like they are at the moment. So that's a kind of positive. And so I'm just curious to ask you this question, which is, do you think that in the next 6 months, consumer demand will increase or stay flat or will decrease? So we've seen this huge increase in demand in consumer for technology, which was underpinned a lot of the success of 2020 and early 2021. We're seeing a flattening off of that. But I mean, who knows, with the COVID crisis continuing, with the variant coming back in, maybe people are going to sit down and say, you know what, maybe this Christmas I do want to buy that tablet, or I do want to buy another PC, and I do want to have technology. So interesting. Okay, so your vote is that consumer demand will increase in the next 6 months. Very interesting. Okay, so I will ask, does anyone want to say why they think that consumer demand will increase? Who voted for the increase in consumer demand?
Adam, let me just say a few words, right? I think, as said, right, I mean, the 5G, of course, smartphone business, of course, I mean, that will be the replacement cycle is there. Of course, it will continue to accelerate the demand. I see as well, of course, on the Google Android systems, right? I mean, I think there are more players coming into the market, which is also driving at affordable prices 5G. So in the smartphone area, for sure, I see an increase of demand, but also in consumer electronics, right? There are a few new categories which show a huge demand, and also the availability there is quite poor. And we expect, of course, that in the next year, I think that will much more supply be available. So I think that is basically my reasoning for giving that kind of vote.
Okay. Well, you'd be interested to know that when I did this earlier, in fact, it was the stay flat that came out on top. So this is interesting difference, I think. So good. Okay. Well, that's the consumer. So let's just have a
just for okay. So I hope the first one is what will happen. I am a little bit more skeptical for 2 reasons. The first one is, I mean, as the pandemic started, I mean, we had a rush from consumers to equip their home, and they bought a lot of PCs, printers, displays, you name it. And I know you had shortages, but nevertheless, I mean, one of the key drivers for the demand last year was consumer in those spaces. What happened in the meantime is prices for all those equipments have increased quite a lot. I mean, you have your index, and I mean, as we know, what our vendors have done is to basically allocate the components to the higher end of their portfolio. So prices have increased quite a lot, and I'm not sure consumers will agree to buy at that level. So that's the reason I'm a little bit cautious. I'm not too optimistic here because of that.
Because of price pressures. I mean, there
are price pressure and the fact that, again, I mean, a lot of the purchases took place.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Good.
And then, and sorry, you know, and the work from home, work from home will be financed by the companies. Or by the governments, not by the consumers buying direct. I don't think so. Okay. It may depend country by country. So, yeah.
So that's a great segue into the next question. Thanks, Patrick, because that's, will the B2B demand increase in the next 6 months? Well, we've already heard you talk about the growth of infrastructure and enterprise spend. So, gosh, oh my goodness. I think that we're getting pretty much a consensus view here. Yeah, okay. So I think that the consensus view is that B2B demand will increase. There's few people who think it might stay flat. And you know what, it depends really which category you're looking at, because some categories like servers have literally been going, negative growth rates way before the pandemic. So it's not necessarily just a pandemic effect. But okay, that's very good. So I need to keep going because I want to finish off the presentation. I do want to show you how the channel is performing in the up to week 46. So that's the first 7 weeks, in fact, of Q4. on this, a mountain is good news and a valley is bad news. And you can see that the only real good news is LFD, other displays, and computing components. Those are the only areas. Oh, and the new technologies area, which is where the types of products that Spence was talking about go into, the robotic vacuum cleaners and things like that. In the other displays, actually, televisions have had a really strong time. We saw big growth, for example, in the UK related to Black Friday. So that's been looking good. And computing components, of course, have been doing extremely well. We already heard from Spence, he mentioned the graphic cards, which has obviously been such a huge success. But when you look at the valleys, you can see that, that mobile computing is down by 10%. And that's, by the way, that is minus 8% on notebooks, minus 35% on tablets. So tablets were very much influenced last year by some big deals, particularly in Germany on education. And so they're really down. But notebooks is by far the biggest. So minus 8% is where they are. And if you overlay onto this, the forecast that we did collaboratively with the channel, you can see that anytime the blue is above the lime green, that's good news. When it is below, it's bad news. So basically, we've got three areas that are above the forecast. We've got the LFD, other displays, and in fact, audiovisual systems, the headsets. They've been doing pretty well. We had down at minus 20% growth. In fact, they're at minus 14%. But what you can see there is that basically we've been far harder hit in the numbers than we expected because of the product shortages. And it is product shortages. We do feel confident that it is the product shortages. I think the surprise is that we didn't kind of get that reflected in the numbers that we collected and in our own analysis. I think that there's a learning there. And maybe, Patrick, you were kind of hinting that maybe you could say something about the month of November. I'd be curious if you had anything to say about the month of November.
No, how can I say? I'm not surprised with, in particular, the situation with mobile computing and with telecom, for example.
Yeah.
The bad surprise for me for this month of November was clearly on infrastructure and security. I would have not forecasted -1. I was more optimistic, and clearly shortages have hurt a lot. On the telecom, just I add one more thing. Part of it is, again, this move to direct from some of the vendors, and some of it is shortages. We didn't get, I mean, we were supposed to get shipments before the month end, and we didn't receive them. We received them after the month end. So December could be, we could have a surprise here on telecom. But yeah, shortages clearly are making the situation worse. And then you have the good news on software. And where you don't have a dependency on deliveries, I mean, the market is showing health. So that's good news.
The software numbers will come through in December because they're very heavily biased towards the year end. We're not seeing that coming through yet. We have seen in the software a big increase in cloud security, more than endpoint security and network security. We had a review on the security software today. We've seen Germany and the UK up in that area. And we're seeing a lot of upgrades taking place, more than new sales. So those are what we saw today when we looked at the security software update. Yeah, we'll see the security coming through in the end of the quarter. The infrastructure was actually held up by networking. Servers and storage were both down, and as you say, they were impacted very much by lack of product. Printing was a big shock to us, just the level of decrease, and I think entirely supply driven, but it was very much more than we'd expected, and we're pretty good at actually forecasting that. Yeah, so that's basically what it looks like overall. Let me just finish off now just by saying that in terms of channels, in the first 7 weeks of the quarter, it's retail which has been the most impacted, and e-tail, and that in fact small and medium reseller have been continuing their amazing progress, which is very positive. And you can see in the numbers here that it's Germany that is 16% down in the first 7 weeks compared to our forecast of -5%. So it's Germany which is the biggest impact. So to end off, I have a question here. Sorry, one more slide. We gave a lower limit of -3.5%. We reckon that the lower limit now is more like -10%. And that's taking into account this product shortage. And I do hope Patrick is right that we'll have a December that can make up for some of the lost ground of November. December is still a huge mountain to climb. So it could even be worse than that number there. But I kind of think that everyone's going to pull their stops out to make sure that we do a bit of catch up in the month of December.
It's the year end for many vendors.
Yeah.
That will help.
Yes. It does, exactly. It will do. So to end off, we're just going to do a word cloud and ask you to put in, you can put in 1 or 2 words, but it's just build up a word cloud of what is the most encouraging thing about your business prospects for the year ahead. And we'll see what the word cloud says. When you add in your words, they should appear up on the screen as you write them. And as I say, you can write more than one thing in there. Yeah, availability. That's kind of, it's the corollary of the product shortage, isn't it? To see the availability there. Emerging vendors. This way, the initial people who put their ideas up there might spark off other people. You know, that's the classic word cloud is that if you get lots of people saying the same thing, the words tend to get a bit bigger. Oh, right, availability. That's funny, isn't it? Cloud. Yeah. So I'm glad to see COVID-19 is still small. Supply. So I'm going to let people fill in this whilst we're talking, and I'm going to ask, I don't know if Michael has been able to get his speaker going, if he's still on the call. Let me just see. Michael Paparakles, are you able to give a point of view about this? I think we've still got the Teams problem there. I apologize if anyone has a vested interest in it. Yeah, how about you, Wayne? Would you like to comment on this word cloud?
I was still typing there, but yeah, I think product availability would, should we say, unclog and unjam a backlog. I would point to security continues to be a threat and an opportunity, depending on whether you're selling or spending. So yeah, I also think I did put the emerging vendors as well. We're seeing we're investing more into leading edge technology, and especially in the cybersecurity space. I think that's going to be very interesting, working with vendors that have got technology that moves quickly in a market that needs quick attention. So that's going to be interesting.
Okay, Al, do you want to give us the last word?
Yeah, happily. I think I'm just encouraged by the fact that we've ridden the wave of the most difficult phase of the pandemic. Hopefully people are now reconnecting with offices. We've got a number of customers that are still to do that, easing their toes in gently, that there's an awful lot of demand that's going to bring whilst customers readjust. With that readjustment, they're going to need to retune IT, and there's going to be a lot of demand and a wave of IT to follow. Yeah. That's networking, that's security, that's Wi-Fi, everything in and around the user, secure their data center, provide, hybrid infrastructure to all. Yeah, we're filled with optimism. There's going to be a lot of opportunity to follow.
Yeah, someone was saying that there'll be a bit of upgrade to do on desktops as well when people get back in, because they've been out of the office for 2 years.
And they're probably packed on the shelves at warehouses as well, ready to roll.
Right. Okay. Well,
No supply issues there.
Not according. Well, yeah. Okay.
It
Some of our
varies
data
by vendor.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I know they've been
Hard
trying to
get a
push them.
picture. Yeah. Okay. And yeah. Sven's.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with availability, and COVID-19 will be there. So availability will be the challenge. For me, the main risk is to catch the moment, and availability will be sort of there. And I think the channel can just get washed away with the availability of goods, and we will have a terrible pricing. I don't expect it much next year, but this moment will be looming at some point.
Yeah.
And of course, I see a bit nightmares about that. So
I
think some players can get hit. Somebody can lose then.
And do you agree with the vote of the people when we asked them about product shortage? Do you agree it's going to really relax in Q3? Would you say so, Patrick? What do you?
No, I don't think so, because I think this bloody thing has seasonal effect, and it seems that it relaxes in spring, summer, and it comes back in autumn. So
okay,
I think we can't find really the cure and the way to live with it. I don't see it in societies yet.
Okay. Okay, Patrick, do you want a last word? You're muted still.
Yeah, I just want to add two things. The first one is the macroeconomic studies are showing that every wave of COVID, in fact, has a lesser impact on the economy. So that's good news. So we should not be too worried about the new wave of COVID and the impact on demand. And the second thing is we could have a good surprise with the EU plan, which is called Next Gen EU. I think the billions which will be injected to accelerate digitalization, one way or another, we should benefit from it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks very much, Patrick, for that positive note to end on. I think that takes us actually to the end of the presentation. So let me just see if that's right. I think it does. Yeah, thank you. So you can stop sharing screen there, Theo, and I'll pass back to Peter and Frank.
Yeah, Adam, thank you very much again for your good presentation. And I'd like to also thank the speakers for their contribution this time. I think it was a good discussion, and at least I learned a lot of good things. Well, this is the last call for the year. We'll continue those calls next year, probably after we have the full year's numbers. So I think it's going to be end of January, most likely. But yeah, I'll let you know soon. Well, with that being said, I wish you good selling for the last 3 weeks of the year. So let's hope it's going to be 3 strong weeks. And well, look forward to meeting you all next year. Happy holidays, and take care. Stay safe.